Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Friday Night Young at Heart, featuring nursery rhymes, stories, songs, poems, Mother Goose, Aesop's fables, Lewis Carroll, limericks, larks, epics, stories of the great operas, and such. To keep us all young at heart, I'm Father James DiLuzio. You find me back in the Rectory Library of the Paulist Fathers here in New York City. Tonight I'm going to offer you a sampling of, not a sampling, a brief synopsis of the first half, Acts 1 and 2 of Puccini's powerful, popular opera, La Boheme. I decided to stick with Acts 1 and 2 because they're the jolly, frolicky ones. Acts 3 and 4 get rather serious. There's sadness, there's death, and why go there? So, you probably know the opera anyway, but it would be fun to reiterate the first two acts. La Boheme premiered on February 1st, 1986, and this is the story based on a bunch of short stories by Henry Murger, a French short story writer, novelist, written about 40 years before Puccini wrote his opera. The main characters, as you may know, Rodolfo, and the woman who will become his love interest, Mimi. And then the secondary characters are Rodolfo's friend Marcello and his love interest, Musetta. But we also have two other friends, Chouinard and Colline. Rodolfo is a poet. Marcello is a painter, an artist. Chouinard is a musician, and Colline is a philosopher. Now, these four men live in a poor, very, very underheated garret in Paris, and they are bohemians. They care not for social conventions. They love the idea of being artists struggling for their art. They take a lot of liberties with conventions. They're living quite poorly, and we start with them trying to do their work and freezing in their garret room. They can't even afford firewood. And it's Rodolfo and Marcello we first meet, and then in comes Chouinard and Colline. As they're talking about their povertà, their poverty, and being bold about it, wishing that they would have some more warmth, it seems Chouinard, the musician, has had some great luck this Christmas Eve. Oh yes, it's Christmas Eve, the setting for these first two acts. And Chouinard had been hired by this extravagant, foolish, wealthy person to play his music for a parrot. Because the parrot is sick and dying, and this wealthy person just said, well, play until the parrot dies. So it was almost all day. Chouinard has made a killing, lots of money. So he comes in, and now they're going to be able to have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas Eve celebration. They're going to go out to the Café Mamou, and which is in the Italian quarter of Paris, and they're going to have a tremendous meal. Now, just as they're getting ready for all this, and Chouinard has bought food for them, like sort of as appetizers besides, and they're starving. So they go attacking all the food that Chouinard has bought. They hardly even listen to the story of how he got the money. They're so exuberant about food. Food, it's good, yeah. So in comes the landlord, Benoit, and they don't want to use the money for the rent. I mean, why? Why should they? It's freezing in there. So with the wine that Chouinard has bought, they get the old man quite drunk, and they get him talking about all his amour, all his amorous affairs. And he used to be quite a womanizer, it seems. But then they confront him because they do know this. The man is married. And so they're shocked and outraged, and they send him off down the stairs of their attic garret, not paying a thing. And then they're off to go down to the Cafe Mamou. And so not Rodolfo, he stays behind. He has an idea, an inspiration for another poem. He stays, and Marcello and Charlotte and Colleen go down, and they'll wait for Rodolfo to join them shortly. Meanwhile, there's a rap at the door, and it's the poor young thing. Her name is Mimi, and she lives in one of the rooms also in the building, but her candle has gone out. And so she has no matches, and she asks Rodolfo, whom they have never met before, if he would provide match. So he brings her in, and it's sort of love at first sight. And they tell each other about them. He has a beautiful aria about being a poet, Che gelida menina, which isn't about him, rather, but when he holds her hand, they're so cold. And it's Che gelida menina, your hands are so cold. And then she tells him, Mi chiamo Mimi, my name is Mimi, and she tells him her story. And they both live in povertà, or poverty, but of course they just fall in love right away. And the candles are lit, and then he hears his friends calling down from the lower levels, but he's just too enchanted with Mimi, and they think, well, maybe they'll just stay. But the candles go out, and then she's lost her key, and they go hunting for it, in the dark. Rodolfo finds it, and he pockets it because he wants to detain her a bit longer. But clearly they decide, no, it's Christmas Eve, they should go and join their friends. So off they go, singing this lovely duet, and then there we have it. That was Act 1. And Act 2, there they are at the cafe, and it's crowded, it's Christmas Eve, there's a toy seller and children, wanting to see all these toys, and the parents reprimanding the children, and there's going to be a big Christmas parade soon. And so we see them in their restaurant ordering what they like, and lo and behold, who is there but Marcello's old flame, Musetta. And Musetta is now with a sugar daddy, an old guy who's keeping her in splendid attire and very comfortable accommodations. Again, this is called la bohème. People just do what they want to do. And but she spies Marcello, and the flame is revived within her and Marcello. But he knows that she left him for more profitable, for a more profitable lifestyle. And so he's furious. So she wants his attention. She can't get it. And then she sings this beautiful song, Quando men vo. Wherever I go, people look at me, leer at me. I'm so attractive. I'm so delectable. Who can resist me? And of course, Marcello has a hard time resisting her as she's singing that, although he tries his best. So now what she has to do is, though she wants to get rid of the old man, so she pretends that her foot is in great pain. She takes off her shoe and says, go to the shoemaker and get this widened. Please, I'm in agony. So as he goes, then the two of them, of course, finally reconnect and embrace and kiss. And they invite her, of course, to their repast. And what happens then is someone has stolen Chenard's pocketbook. And so there's no money for this dinner. And Musetta figures, well, that's fine. I'll just get the old man to pay. So she tells the waiter, give the bill to him when he comes back. And off they go. Now, and then comes the big Christmas parade, which concludes the act for this frivolous group of friends. The music is very romantic. It's what's known as opera verissimo opera. It's true to life. There's no kings and queens and dukes and bishops and all that. It's just down-to-earth regular people being perhaps a little more down-to-earth than you would like. So for fun, if you go to the commentary underneath this video, whether on Facebook or YouTube, I'm giving you a link to the scene at the Cafe Momo and leading up to Musetta's waltz, Quando Men Vo. The one I chose is a modern-looking production set not in 1896 but in 1950, but I was really struck with how well it's sung and how well it's acted. So I hope that you enjoy it. Give me a comment or two. If you want the sad conclusion of Acts 3 and 4, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on back to some Italian folktales next week. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Have a great weekend. God bless. Good night.